The Art Deco Historic District was put on the National Register of Historic Places, and it was significant because it was the first neighborhood of 20th century buildings to be put on the National Register. My name is Howard Breyer. I'm a volunteer tour guide with the Miami Design Preservation League. We'll be doing an Art Deco walking tour of the historic district of Miami Beach. Two events in the latter half of the 1920s changed the course of history for Miami Beach as a resort. First, in 1926, a major hurricane had a direct hit on the city. Hundreds of people were killed, much property was destroyed or severely damaged. Then in 1929, the stock market crashed, and many of the wealthy people who were coming here also lost much of their money. So the nature of Miami Beach as a resort changed in the 1930s. If you look up and down Ocean Drive, most of the buildings that you see were erected as hotels in the 1930s, primarily for a middle-class clientele. Art Deco was a style of architecture begun in Europe early in the 20th century. There was a big exhibit in Paris in 1925 that featured Art Deco architecture and design. People from all over the world went to that exhibit and brought Art Deco home with them. Miami Beach has about 800 Art Deco buildings, one of the highest concentrations of any city in the world. The Breakwater Hotel across the street was erected in 1940. And I'll point out a few of its features that are common to Art Deco buildings here. Number one, the front facade is symmetric, meaning if you fold it in half, it's the same on both sides. Often Art Deco buildings here give a sense of movement. The breakwater looks almost like a ship, the breakwater sign being its mast. The railings on the roofline look like the railings on a cruise ship. So it almost looks as if it's about to leave its foundation and go out into the ocean behind us. The next building we'll look at is the original Congress Hotel immediately across the street. If you look at the roof line, you see it goes up in steps on both sides. That's called a ziggurat. That was first developed in Mesopotamian architecture, later adopted by the Egyptians. And Egyptian architecture and design was popular in many places around the world in the 1920s and 30s because of the discovery of King Tut's tomb there in 1922. Next, you'll notice the ledges over the windows. The nickname for those here are eyebrows. They served a very important function. They provide shade for the interior, keeping it cooler, especially important for when these buildings were not air conditioned. And finally here, if you look at the Congress Hotel sign, the font that the letters are in was a very popular font in the 1930s. So our next stop will be in the lobby of the original part of the Victor. The architectural features that we see in the lobby are original. So the first feature we'll look at is the floor. The material is called terrazzo. It was first developed in Italy. It's stone chips mixed in with a composite. And as it dries, it could be molded into different shapes and dyed various colors. Most of the terrazzo floors in Miami Beach Art Deco buildings are the original floor. And finally, these are considered classic Art Deco chandeliers. The Essex House Hotel, it's another Art Deco building. This was erected in 1939. You can see the terrazzo floor like we saw in the Victor. You see these three arrows in the floor. Up until 1950, illegal gambling was popular in many Miami Beach hotels. At its height, in the late 1940s, up to 200 Miami Beach hotels featured illegal gambling. So sometimes the hotel would put an indication in the floor of where the gambling was taking place so people wouldn't have to ask at the front desk. Miami Beach is noted for its colorful buildings. When these buildings were first erected, they were painted primarily neutral colors. Off-white was the most common color. For the most part, the colorful buildings didn't come into play until the early 1980s. Today, the current trend is to go back to more neutral colors, especially white, which is in line with the overall design trend in the United States today.